Senator Lippman, and one question for you regarding the strategic plan. Very impressive over the breadth of best practices, and here's someone mentioned under the terms that we did. I'm sure with teachers in the audience, touch people in particular that would be part of your set. Regarding the strategic plan, a two-part question. What would your commitment be to the district for the length of time that you feel you would be committed to staying here to see that plan develop and come to fruition? The second part of that, with the breadth that you do have, and certainly you're very lucky to have someone here with your background, and Verona's been lucky to have you, and the others. Where does that foundation and comprehensiveness bring you in terms of innovations that you can project in a picture in a district such as ours within the length of that strategic plan?
You know, our current plan is 5 years in duration, so I can speak from my own experience that the 5-year cycle, whether it's a magic number, but seems, you know, you have to figure that it's a year in the putting it together, and then it's 5 years out from there. So you're looking at a 6-year period of time, in my estimation. I think what you have to do when you're putting a strategic plan together is you have to realize that you are building, you're helping to prepare students for the world that they are going to move into, not the world that they are in. So I think that in your question about innovation, you know, no one can foresee the future, but I do think that you have to have certain milestones that you expect to meet. You know, whether it's as minuscule as all communication being electronic to, you know, all students will utilize Skype to, connect to students in other areas of the country. Whatever it might be, you have to build those into the plan, and you have to have forward thinkers that you're listening to, because I am not, Steve Jobs. So, what I've been able to do is leverage my connections with folks who are connected to the world that innovates, Classroom 2.0 and the New York Skate folks and groups like that, where you're meeting with folks who are forward thinkers to make sure that you're connected to where that world is headed, and that you're building your budget to maximize those capabilities as you go. It's hard to answer on a specific innovation, but that's the thought process behind putting a plan like that together.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. You're next, and you'll follow. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. You are next. Yes.
Max Selman, I go to Colton High School also. You told him that you had those meetings with students. He was going on in school. But how do you plan on benefiting the rest of the students? I'm not a super outstanding student. I'm pretty average. How would I benefit? How would you benefit me?
That's an interesting question. What I would hope I would be able to do with, first off, in any school.
Could you repeat the question for us?
He said he's quote unquote, Max, I don't want to speak for you, he said you're an average student, correct? And he asked how I would benefit him if I didn't have a select meeting group with him or so on.
Not just me, but people like
in general, right? Sorry, Max. All I can talk about from experience is that when I'm out and about in the classrooms and in the school building, it's not about meeting with students who are only on student council or meeting with students who are only in an AP class. I think it's scheduling your time in all classes across the board. So I might say it's Tuesday between 9 and 9:45. I'm going to spend some time in the 10th grade. And I'm just going to go talk to 10th grade students in the classes. And I think you have to schedule that time to do it and to make it happen. And it has to be more than, hey, what are you studying? Do you like that? It has to be sitting in the classroom for a couple minutes and then having small dialogue with students about what they're learning, what their perceptions are, what they might be struggling with in the class, and putting a face to my name to the students. And then I like to I will randomly, and again, I have one high school, so it's a different experience, but I will randomly call students down who have done something, that came across my desk as well, that a teacher says, hey, I have these two students and they donated their time to a particular charity. I might just have them pop in for 2 minutes and say thanks, and stuff like that goes a long way with the students starting to get to know who I am a little bit.
June Ryan, I'm a parent in the district. What's your education background? Like, not what you taught, where'd you go to school?
I went to Rutgers University. It was the only school I applied to, the only one I could afford. I have an undergraduate degree in history, an undergraduate degree in criminal justice. I have a master's degree in social studies education. I have a master's degree in educational administration. I am about 3/4 of the way through a doctorate program, although I'm about to have my 4th child, and my wife would divorce me if I continued on that over the next couple of years. So that's been on hold for about a year because I have 3 young children. The job is very demanding. It's a 70, 80-hour-a-week job, and reading 1,000-page history novels on Saturday afternoon all day was not acceptable to the home life. So that's on hold, but I'm about 3/4 of the way through. I do teach at Montclair State University. I teach a course on differentiated supervision for aspiring administrators. I also advise, the state of New Jersey changed the requirements for aspiring superintendents. So I advise that internship program, those cohorts through Montclair State University. So I cut my teeth, hopefully, on teaching a little bit as well and stay current. But that's my educational background.
We're at the point where we have some people who've already asked a question. So this will be the last call for people who haven't asked a question yet, before we go to the people who've already asked but have another one they want to ask. So, first-time questions, sir.
Thank you. My name is Butch Alvin. Currently a superintendent in a K-12 district, where this is a 9-12 district. I'd like to know your feeling and the differences between that, and should this district eventually dismantle and be a K-12 district, your feelings on that?
It would be one huge district if that occurred. I don't know, absent my knowledge of the logistical structure and the economics of that.
Okay.
He asked, I'm sorry.
Can you repeat the question? It's one of the problems of sitting in the back.
Right, can you just repeat, please?
Correct me if I get this right. He asked, as a K-12 superintendent, is it a different consideration from a 9-12 district? And would I look at the need for the district here to ultimately become a K-12? Correct?
No, there's a possibility, there was an exploration at one point, and I'm not sure what the process of that right now, but there's talk about dismantling the regional district and going back to each township having a K-12.
Okay. That is a community decision. That's not, I don't know what the background is on that. It would be, I would be shooting in the dark to even answer that question because I don't know.
I think I can answer that question and tell you that though there's been an effort to look at consolidations in different forms, I think the conclusion recently from the governor's office as well as the Department of Education is that that's not going to happen in the near future. That's something that may be considered over time, but it's not imminent. So if you would focus on the other part of the question, which is the difference between K-12, 9-12, and its relationship with K-8, I think that would be a little more productive.
The difference from it's a very different experience from the high school to a K-12 setting. The K-12 setting, I'm intimately involved. I have 6 school buildings in my district, so I'm intimately involved at the elementary level and the middle school, at 1 middle school and 1 high school. So you're articulating the curriculum. You're making sure that on the K-12 scope that you have a clear process of development for your students. In terms of a high school regional, you're not involved in the K-8 process, so to speak, of those other districts. I think what you do need to do as a high school regional is to work actively with those K-8 folks who are sending to your district to make sure that you're articulating the curriculum in a meaningful way for all students that are coming from those sending districts. That would be what I would look at as one of my charges as superintendent, is to make sure that we're reaching out to the K-8s that send to us, period. So it's a fundamentally different experience. You have control over that as a K-12 superintendent. When I meet with my elementary principals and my elementary teachers, they're folks that work in the same school district. So I think it would be more about building bridges to the K-8 sending districts as a superintendent of schools here.
We all know that our students are somehow behind in math and science in this country. What do you feel is the most important thing a superintendent can do for a district to have its graduation in pace with the 21st century job skills?
Yeah, I think that it's incumbent, to make sure that as a superintendent of schools, first off, she asked, what do you do to keep pace with the math and science requirements on a global scale as a superintendent of schools? And I can only speak from my experience. Some of the things that we've tried to do is to really look at, making sure that there are enough STEM courses in our offerings, that students are progressing to, various offerings. We've tried to partner with a couple local universities to provide our students experiences beyond what we're even offering at our high school, and to also make sure that we are articulating our math and science curriculum in a meaningful way, so that we're not dragging out, so to speak, the math experience of students. What I've found sometimes is that we actually slow down the mathematic growth of particular students based on our scope and sequence of our curriculum, especially from the middle to the high school. Everything's been kind of pushed down. But it has to be, and by everything I mean, algebra and things of that nature. But I think that you have to push those concepts down in a manner that is meaningful. So we're moving in the state to the Common Core. The Common Core standards for math and language arts, but particularly for math, are fundamentally different, in grades 3 through 6 than they were 5 years ago. So I think it's incumbent to make sure that we are aligning our scope and sequence of our math and our science courses in a manner that allows our students to progress through their high school experience where they meet that threshold in terms of what the expectations are.
I am a technology facilitator, so I'm all about integrating technology in the classroom. You mentioned a lot of 21st century skills. Social media really is a buzzword when it comes to education, how kids are interacting with each other, both in school and out of school, mostly out of school. How do you envision the use of social media in school, and how do you plan to support it as an administrator to improve and support it?
It's funny, I think that we tend to be scared of it for some reason, because there's certain elements that you can't control about it. My philosophy has really been to try and harness it as much as possible and direct it to meaningful ways for us. So, social media is kind of this broad term that encompasses.
Can you give me like an example?
Yeah, we launched a Moodle initiative a couple years ago, and it took off like wildfire. I had about 20 teachers that just embraced it like you couldn't imagine. So then we reached out to an area of private school that was kind of known for doing all things Moodle. And we tapped into their technology person. I brought her over to do a couple days of workshops with our folks. And the Moodle initiative is now taking off like crazy. And kids are communicating, collaborating with each other. We did something the other day where we Skyped in a law student from George Mason on Veterans Day that was debating the Supreme Court case about the folks that are marching at soldiers that are bringing back. And so we Skype in this law student from George Mason, and I've got all my AP Gov kids there having this dialogue with this law student from George Mason, and it was powerful learning and utilizing social media, not being scared to embrace it and try it. And I think that you have to lead by example. I'm the first one to I did a blog radio show a couple weeks back, and sent it out to the staff, and it was on bullying and things like that. But just to reach out there, I'm not a guy that will tweet, oh my God, the weather outside, but I do think that you have to be aware of how you use it for your students' benefit, because they're using it all the time.